if you host on Airbnb, you get the ding, a little message comes through, and it's not the full message because you get a snippet of it initially, right? And it says,
Right.
"Sorry, I have to inform you, your house is on fire.
Oh
We've
my, yeah,
vacated
okay.
the property."
So
And
when you
this,
told me this story, like I ran out and I bought 37 fire extinguishers, like Christy. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Noah from Cola REI, home of the re-up, famously hot. Hey, have you ever wondered what happens to an Airbnb property when a guest starts a fire? If so, you are not going to want to miss this episode. I hate giving this interview because it happened to a good friend of mine, but I can't think of anyone better for this to have happened to based on his experience, his knowledge around the Airbnb space. Our next guest, we have an interview with Michael Hamilton and his wife, Maria. They own a company called Live Swell Properties, which is like a boutique. I call it like a boutique surf bungalow setup. Real quick, got some really cool properties in the Outer Banks, out at the beach. And he's a really good friend of mine. And I called him up, said, "Hey, Mike, like, what's going on? Like, summer's coming up. We're planning a beach trip. How's everything going?" And I knew we were approaching around a year time, almost 12 months since one of his places caught on fire. So we caught up. How's life? How's this? Where should we stay? Oh, hey, what happened to that house that caught on fire? You guys, you would not believe this. He's still dealing with it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much unknown, like it's not out there. People don't know about this stuff, like how to handle it. There's a lot of great lessons that we can learn from this process. What happens if your house catches fire? It's an Airbnb house, Airbnb rental, Airbnb guests. What's the process? What does it look like? Do they even pay you? Is it even insurance? Like, what's going on? So I can't think of anyone better to share their story with us than Michael and Maria, live from the Outer Banks. Hey guys, what's going on?
how's it going?
Hey, I just, I'm so thankful. Hey, I'm glad everybody's okay. No, none of your guests got hurt, and you guys are okay and kind of dealing with it. And thank you for taking the time to just share your experience, because holy cow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And you know what, Noah? I didn't realize until you actually were doing the intro, you were visiting the Outer Banks the week that this actually happened. And Marie and I actually wanted to go down and see you guys.
Yeah.
We didn't tell you. It actually happened early in your week. But that's the same week that you were here. It was the last week of June. We had a guest in our newest rental, the Bohemian Bungalow. We acquired it in November of 2020, put in almost $100,000 renovation to take advantage of all the things that we've learned in our experience of what guests like, what are the sigil features. We had an ocean view deck on this property. And
it was like our ultimate renovation.
It was our ultimate renovation after years and years of learning and getting better. We're not perfect, but I guess set it on fire. And I'm sure a lot of people are curious, what's the story, right? What happened here? So I set a little context around it. We had, the new property. This renter was actually the third guest of the property. There's only two previous guests to this. And that day, was a great day. It was a beautiful June day.
Probably just like the morning was just like this, probably, right? With the
surfboard. It was a stunning morning, probably about 80 degrees
right there. Yeah.
Right. And we had went and we did an inspection on the property to make sure everything was up to par after the cleaner had taken off, and everything looked great. And later that day, after the guests had checked in, this is much later in the day, but later that day, we had gotten a message from them saying, "Hey, look, what did they say to you?" They wrote a message to you.
They said how much they loved the house, how beautiful it was, and that they wanted to stay longer.
They wanted to stay longer, so right? Great. So, I mean, it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 o'clock, and then, imagine you're in the scenario where your phone starts ringing off the hook. It's about 7 o'clock at night. It starts ringing off the hook from a neighbor. And I'm kind of like, I'm not sure what he's calling about. I'm not sure, do I want to pick that up right now? And
right.
Calls again. And I'm like, oh, well, holy smokes, what's going on? But at the same time, how if you host on Airbnb, you get the ding, a little message comes through, and, it's not the full message because you get a snippet of it initially, right? And it says, "Sorry, I have to inform you, your house is on fire."
Oh my God. Okay.
Property.
So when you told me this story, like I ran out and I bought 37 fire extinguishers. Like Christy was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, each one, every room in the house gets one. Cause like I laid up. I know you probably had many sleepless nights. I laid up at night thinking, God, what if something would have happens to one of our places too? And I'm sure a lot of our viewers are questioning that. Maybe they found this video on Google or whatever. They're like, what happens if there is a fire or whatever? So we're so glad to like have you here and share this experience. So I've got a lot of questions. As you know, I'm all over the place. So I've written them down to help, keep track of things. Mike, you
Sure.
mind going through some of this stuff with us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. So you get the phone call, like give us a timeline. Like, how did the fire start?
Yeah,
Let's
so it's
start
a really
there.
good question. And after there's any fire on a house, fire marshal goes through, does an investigation, and obviously the guests had comments too. So it was very, it's very simple. The peak month of grill fires, this was a grill fire, is July. This happened on June 30th, so right there.
Okay.
And the individual that was using the grill was on the ground. It wasn't on a deck. It was away from the house. We put our grills in an area where they're safe, right? So the gentleman had trouble getting the grill started, and we leave 2 tanks on site. And I happen to know from the inspection that the tank that was on there was not empty. We leave a spare just in case they run out. They don't have to go to the store. They can continue grilling. So he mentioned that day when we had saw him that he was having a lot of trouble getting the grill started. So he took off the first tank, put on the other tank. And then when he put on the other tank, he put all 4 burners on high, fired it up, left it for a little while. There's different stories about how long he left. It kind of changed after a while. But what we do know is it was long enough. The flame was long enough that it burns through that rubber hose that connects to the tank. And so by the time that he had found the grill on fire, it was completely engulfed in flames, and the propane tank now is spewing out gas, unloading a whole tank of gas on the house. And so, that in a nutshell is the story of how the fire happened. We don't know if it was, 15 minutes or 30 minutes or 45 minutes. Obviously, people come to a vacation scenario, they're excited, left the grill unattended, and particularly that day, we had an unfortunate wind. The wind was blowing towards the house. So if you were leaving it unattended,
Yeah.
the fire was blowing towards the house. And so the back deck caught on fire. And the image that you have up here, you're seeing the firefighters on the roof because the whole roof was on fire, at least the back side of it. And they were extinguishing it. And even the neighbor's house, the neighbor next door had just constructed a new construction. It was 2-story. And they had some adjacent damage. Their siding had melted because the blaze was that big.
And I was looking on your website. You actually have a blog article about it where you have like real detailed pictures and a video walkthrough. So if anybody wants to go to live-swell.com and check that out, definitely go for it, because that thing, it's the smoke and the soot. It was just everywhere. Total loss, right, Mike?
Right. So, how insurance is, claims total loss is different interpretations of that. But
Right.
for me,
In my
personally,
mind, I'm just using that as like,
personally, it is. It is a total loss for me. About 35% of the house was completely fire damaged. 100% of the house was smoke damaged. Again, so what you're looking at there on that photo is the north side of the house. So there's a video of this. You can see the smoke billowing out those front 2 windows, all the windows.
It's like the complete opposite side on the back side.
Right,
How long?
Complete opposite
So
side.
how long has it been? So right now we're middle of May, and this happened last week of June, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week of June of last year. So we submitted our claim right away through our insurance. And then our insurance also was like, make sure you submit your claim through Airbnb.
Now,
which
this
we
is
were going to as well. But they were really adamant, make sure you submit that right away.
And so you have insurance, obviously, on top of what Airbnb says they do and so forth too, right? So tell people a little bit about like what that looks like.
Right, because regardless, if you're not hosting on a listing site or something like that, you want to have your property insured. So we have it's not a homeowner's insurance policy. We have a policy. You can probably explain a little bit better, Mike.
Yeah, we have a policy that's custom penned for vacation rentals, covers the unique risk of vacation rentals. It's designed to cover that. And with our insurance absolutely would come into play. The interesting thing about this scenario is because Airbnb offers this $1 million host guarantee, AirCover, whatever it is you now have 2 parties that were actually liable to pay, because Airbnb did also, there was the fire marshal investigation, They
Yeah.
did fund an independent fire investigation, spent thousands of dollars on it, thousands.
Yeah.
One thing I will mention is I had a lot of communication with the fire investigator because they're on my property, how to comply with that. But when I requested the fire report, Airbnb would not give it to me. They denied me access to it, said I could not.
And just to be clear, I don't think I've even mentioned this yet. Like, you haven't been paid yet.
Yeah, so it has been almost 1 whole year, and we have not been paid one dime or dollar. So yeah, now that's important that you're mentioning that right there, because why did they fund that investigation? Their intent, what they were hoping for was that the fire investigator could eliminate the guest as a cause of the fire. They were trying to maybe get something like, oh, maybe there was faulty electrical or something like this.
Right.
The fire investigator completely told me, though, he's like, look, I cannot give you access to the report. They're not allowing me to. But what I can tell you is they're not off the hook, because I cannot eliminate the guest as a cause of the fire. So, when somebody says, well, what happens to my house if somebody lights it on fire and there's an Airbnb guest? The first thing is they're going to do an investigation. You may or may not be eligible for their program. If it's found that they're not, they were eliminated and that there was some other reason for the fire,
Yeah.
well, then you're not going to be eligible. But in this scenario, after that happened, we're eligible for both. And that's kind of how that goes.
Well, and we'll get into that in a minute. So what happened to the house? Did you guys repair it yourselves? Is it still
Yeah.
there?
So I mean, it wasn't clear cut initially, what to do. And this is an asset that's income producing. So the longer and longer we have it out of service, as we do right now, we're taking extreme income losses.
Right.
But we also were looking at the market and the way things were going. This was an older 1970s house, and regardless, we had just put in $100,000 into it. The decision, as we got a little bit further along, it became clear to do a new construction. So as of this point, we demolished it in November.
Yeah.
And we are almost done with the framing of the new house. We're anticipating the new house to be complete probably by the end of the summer. So even with funding this with our own resources, well over $300,000 of our own resources that we're paying interest on and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to lose 2 rental seasons. So I kind of imagine the scenario and say to myself, well, if it was left up to Airbnb and that person needed the money to finish their house,
right,
how long would they be out of service? Could it be 3 years? Could it be 4 years? I'm out 2 years, and I didn't let them hold me up anymore.
And I think that's one of my questions I got on the next slide. Like, I'm just gonna scoot over there. Just when it comes to down at the bottom, like booking loss income, like that is it as vague as it sounds, or is it very detailed? Like, because in my mind, when I hear you say I've got 2 years of lost income, I'm thinking hundreds of thousands of dollars, because this is in the Outer Banks. It's a high beach destination. Like, that's got to be what that is, right?
Yeah, I want to let Maria take this question. You're absolutely on the right track. She knows a lot more about the program itself. So why don't you speak?
Yeah, you're definitely on the right track when you're putting together in your head what that number can look like, just dollar amounts for the time that's been taken care of. But when you look at insurance, as well as you look at the Airbnb policy, so typically with insurance, the way they'll analyze booking income is they can take a projection over the timeline from the date of the loss to the time that they estimate that you're back in operation.
Okay.
And it works out pretty well, so you can get a good idea of what that number is. Now, with insurance, oftentimes you have policy limits. So that's where sometimes your maximums can be capped to what your booking income is.
Okay.
Now, the Airbnb policy differs is that their details for the terms of their booking income is that you have to have bona fide Airbnb bookings. They're only going to cover bona fide Airbnb bookings booked before the time of the loss. So they could be, you could have a reservation scheduled for July, but it had to be reserved before
your loss,
June 30th.
Right.
Now that works out well if you can resolve the claims quickly.
Yeah.
Like they actually advertise
the
on
2
their
weeks,
website
or I've seen 9 days
for what the host guarantee, now called AirCover, is. They say we've seen it as 9 days. They now advertise it as 2 weeks. So that, that's not terrible. But for us, this experience is going into, it's going to get close to a year. So when you have a booking income loss written that way, it feels like it's written to really not cover much booking income at all.
To give you an idea, and you're right, Noah, it's multiple hundreds of thousands, over $200,000 of income lost between these two rental seasons. Last rental season, this rental season will be lost. So that's 200 grand right there. I'll tell you, in bona fide bookings, so there's 3 buckets of items that we can be compensated for. One's the building, right? The fire.
Okay.
Second is the contents, what's inside the house.
Yep.
And the third is the income, what you're at right now.
Okay.
Now becoming the most significant one, because the more time it takes, the more it impacts us.
Yeah.
On their bona fide bookings, I can tell you right now, the bona fide bookings that we had for this house, as I mentioned, it was a new house, it's third renter. We didn't open up the calendar fully because we were gauging rates and testing them.
Yeah.
Before we fully committed to opening up the calendar. There's only $15,000 of bona fide bookings on there.
Well, and the calendar had only been open.
It had only been open for a few weeks.
Right.
Right. So there you go.
So is it, do they give you all, I mean, they haven't given you any buckets, but are they like pick one bucket, pick 2 of the 3? Like,
no, it'll be all the buckets. Every bucket will have a number associated with it.
Hopefully.
But what I can tell you is the income number is the one that is going to be the most damaging to us.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately we're not in alignment with Airbnb. I mean, of course, they don't want to remove funds from their scenario, but we're also in an incentive to get this thing done. So it's kind of a tricky alignment.
I'm going to pull something up as well, because for the average person that's like, hey, look, like this is really cool. Like you can Airbnb your house. You can Airbnb. We've got a rental property vacant. Let's try Airbnb. I heard you can make a lot of money. Right. And then you start thinking, what's the downside to it? Like, gosh, what if there's a place that catches on fire or a place catches, and then so like naturally you would go to like the Airbnb website and just say, hey, look, is there any solutions to like if something were to happen or whatever, right? And so, this is probably what you're talking about when it says AirCover.
That's right.
Is
There's been a couple iterations of this program. So right now it's AirCover. Before it was the Airbnb Host Guarantee.
Okay.
For the year that we've been involved in this, they've revamped their program twice.
Okay.
It was actually called the Host Guarantee with different terms and conditions at the time of our loss. And through this year, it's gone from being called the Host Guarantee to being called AirCover, where we can actually see that some of the terms and conditions have actually been adjusted since the time of our loss. For example, we had 30 days to file our claim, and we also had the ability to ask for an extension if we needed it. From what I've seen on the website so far, you can see it's a 14-day filing window. And I haven't been able to find an option where they list in their terms and conditions, and maybe I've missed it, where they offer an extension. So there's some things that feel as though it's becoming a little bit more limited. But as well, like you were saying, so we also feel the same way. Like when we host on Airbnb, that is something that gives you a little bit of peace of mind, knowing that you have something where they say you've got top to bottom protection. This is just part of what you get included when you host with us. We protect our hosts, $1 million. They give you this magical number of $1 million.
Yeah, I see it. It's like all over the place on this website. It's like top to bottom protection, always included, only on Airbnb.
Yeah, and it's free. It's free.
$1 million liability insurance.
Yeah, we got you covered. So,
$1 million damage protection. Yeah.
So it sounds really, really great. And anything, that sounds really, really great, you always kind of wonder, well, what's it really like? What's the catch here?
Yeah, and what's interesting about this from my perspective too is I watch Airbnb commercials and it says, well, this is all made possible by hosts, right? Well, yeah, we're in a scenario where unfortunately we're not able to service Airbnb guests, and I always get reviewed, and you have Airbnbs, you get reviewed, and there's 5 categories outside of the general one of which is called accuracy. So I have almost 1,000 reviews on Airbnb from different properties. And every time a guest checks out of my property, they get to review me for accuracy. You know, when I look at this program right here, this AirCover, there is nothing accurate about this program.
Yeah, I would
There's
agree.
absolutely nothing accurate about it. There's no quick reimbursements, and it doesn't feel. One of the biggest reasons we list on Airbnb is for this. There's a lot of reasons we list on it, but this makes you feel good. This makes you feel like, hey, look, if I get in a bind, somebody burns me down, Airbnb's got my back. In my experience, Airbnb has not had our back. This has been an absolute disappointment and a joke.
Yeah, so even with what we knew of the host guarantee, now AirCover, we felt concerned, obviously, because I've also seen throughout communities that when people have gone through the claim process trying to use the host guarantee, that it's been difficult. And even for us, when we've done smaller claims for like a shade, curtains,
Like doorknobs or whatever. Like,
we've actually never had it successfully adjusted through that host guarantee process. We've usually just been able to work something out with the guest. So
it's almost like they hope you do that, right?
And they do. That's what they push you to do before they would even step in. So when we came to this point, this is much more than a damaged curtain or a damaged blind. This was, or a lamp. This was our whole property that's uninhabitable, unrentable now by this guest. So we sought some professional help to submit our claim.
Yeah, you hired a couple of different types of people, right? Tell us about that process.
And we've also been consulting with an attorney just to make sure that, you know, we're covered, because Airbnb, as well as our insurance, we know they're looking out for themselves, and they've got big pockets looking out for them as well. So we wanted to make sure that we didn't.
Yeah, I mean, pros hire pros. I mean, you know, Noah and I have always believed in that, and I can talk to you a little bit more about the process. A public adjuster works on your behalf as the insured. So whenever anybody goes into an insurance type claim scenario, there's adjusting that happens. So the insurance company hires an adjuster, and that adjuster works for the insurance company. Airbnb's program is not insurance, and they make that very, very clear, but they actually use an insurance adjuster. They third party, Crawford and Company, to do their adjusting. So they don't want to call it insurance, but it's done the same way. So because this was a very large, complex claim, well north of $300,000, you know, you make a mistake. It could be a full-time job, submitting documents, getting estimates, all these sorts of things. Right. You know, we gave up 10% of what the claim was to hire a professional that would act on our behalf. So that individual negotiates, not only with, you know, deals with the Airbnb personnel, deals with our insurance personnel, but also hired individuals to do the building estimate, to do the income loss estimate, to do the content loss estimate. So yeah, fire claims, it's pretty heavy and it's pretty hairy, and that would be a recommendation too. We've had a good experience with our adjuster. We know that, you know, we're getting a better look at what the estimates are because of having that professional help, and that 10% will wind up working out. But so it's good to have that. And then, as Maria mentioned as well, and I'll just follow this up because it's important at this point. Airbnb is not insurance, and what it is, it's a contract.
Yeah, so what's the difference? I was wondering that too. Like,
right. So insurance is governed under laws. And every state has a Department of Insurance. And if for some reason, you know, that policy, that contract isn't going according to the way it's supposed to be, the Department of Insurance can step in. Because Airbnb is not insurance, and I'm sorry, my baby might be waking up here. It's not insurance. It's not governed by any Department of Insurance. No state entities can govern it. And so in order to really obtain the contract benefits, the AirCover or the host guarantee, you'll need a lawyer to go to litigation. You know, if for some reason they're stalling or they're not going to pay or whatever it is. You know, when I research house fires on Airbnb, every single one that I've seen has ended in litigation. Every single one.
Yeah, I couldn't find much information when I was looking as well, which is crazy. Mike, I'm gonna pull this up because this is just gnarly. And to really get a feel for it, I hate to just bring it up. I don't know. I feel like every time I'm talking about it, I know I'd be like, gosh, why we keep but we're talking about it. So here it is. So guys, you can go here to their website. It's what was the name of the bungalow? What'd you call it?
This is the Bohemian bungalow.
Bohemian. Yeah, there's the firefighters on the roof.
You don't always get to see that, and actually, what are they doing on that roof? So not only has your house been smoked out and fire damage, they're on the roof there taking care of what's called the art of venting. I learned about.
Okay.
So they're trying to stay ahead of the fire, and they're up there with a chainsaw, and they're cutting the roof rafters and holes in the roof.
Unreal. Yeah, and that video is pretty gnarly of what they're doing in there and the damage, man. So, gosh, I hate this for you. If there was like a couple of takeaways, the key points, things like that, like what advice would you give to the listeners? Because like it's an awesome investment strategy. It's a great business model. You actually wrote a book about it, Vacation Rental Confidential, one of the first people to write about how to systematize short-term rentals and vacation owners ship like this. Like what's the takeaway that you can give to someone that might help the people out there?
Just like a couple of things that we elected to do here. I mean, I would say hire some pros, right? I mean, if you're going through this process and it's taking
especially
a while,
if it's a high dollar claim.
I would have some counsel from an attorney. I would hire a public adjuster. Airbnb's AirCover is not a substitute for having correct insurance.
That's huge.
Correct
you
insurance.
Have the correct insurance on top of.
And we haven't really gotten into this, and I know we're wrapping it up, but pretty much the way the scenario is we had to choose to either use our primary insurance or Airbnb's first. And whichever one you used first, the other one will be excess. So for example, in the income scenario, we have income loss through our insurance. So we'll get paid some by Airbnb, and then we'll get paid our limit by our insurance afterwards because they'll pick up excess. So that's just a point that's important. Don't expect a quick payout. Anything else? Have reserves. I mean, you teach and you preach and you guys do business, you raise money. It's important to have reserves and capital available. We're in a pretty fortunate scenario, but I still had to raise some capital to move forward a $300,000 project, without further impacting my life. We're actually in the process of buying another lot for ourselves. So, we wanted to make sure we had resources available so that this thing isn't going to impact multiple years. It's, we can get it done and get it going. So those are the things that I have. Anything else, Maria?
Yeah, I mean, just highlighting off of that, like you were saying, like hire professionals, but at the same time, become somewhat of an expert yourself in what's going on with this process. Because one thing I found, especially working with the Airbnb process, is that Mike and I are alone right now. I mean, no one else is really looking out for us. We have this property that is unrentable. We've had to just make the decision to start the rebuild on our own because we couldn't afford not to. But if you don't take the time to look out for yourself, so that's hiring the professionals, becoming familiar with your terms and conditions and all of the things that are components of whether it's Airbnb, Vrbo, VRBO, and your own insurance, because how those policies work and talk to each other can really impact the length of your claim as well. So,
and you got the little one there on top of it all. You're going through this, juggling everything.
Yes.
But he was actually in the Bohemian Bungalow.
Was he in there?
But he was in the Bohemian. He spent a couple of weeks there.
Is that his nickname? Was he conceived in the Bohemian Bungalow? That little guy?
He wasn't conceived in the Bohemian.
Oh, okay, all right.
Spent some time there. You got a little view of the roof deck at the fire. Yeah, it's great having the call, man. Thanks for having us on. It's always good to share the story and just give some other people some context. And
so just really quick though, where we're at right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask, where are you at right now? Like, where did they leave you hanging?
Yeah, so where we're at right now is that around December was when we got a timeline from Airbnb that
they said 2 months. About 2 months from December.
What they needed to finish and settle the claim.
And this was when?
That was in December
of 2021.
Of 2021, which is 6 months after the original incident where we even got that timeline. So now we're in May of 2022. So I would say that we've gone past the 2-month mark, and we're still waiting. Where we're at is that we've been told by the Crawford adjuster and Airbnb representative will be reaching out to Mike via email. So just look at our inbox for this very important.
Yeah, let me clarify that. So that was the adjuster that
that's
Airbnb hired. The adjuster that Airbnb hired has said, I've finished my final report. I've submitted it to Airbnb. All Airbnb stakeholders are reviewing it, and they are going to reach out to you directly via email. This was over 6 weeks ago. So, I mean, things keep taking this long. I don't know that we're going to see a check until who knows how long. Yeah. But anyway, it is what it is. And, you know, as you said from the beginning, nobody got hurt. It's an unfortunate scenario. We can all learn from it. We're going to come out better from it, but we're not going to let Airbnb's, no disrespect, misleadingness and poor AirCover program, you know, deter your business. Yeah, you just have to prepare for that. Don't bank on that. That's not a as advertised type situation.
Well, Mike, I'm gonna have you back. We're gonna do an update when we get some news. So hopefully that update happens sooner than later, because we'd love to have you back on and see how everything panned out. But I appreciate you guys' time. You got some beautiful properties, and just keep doing your thing. And you're great parents. And I can just. This is a shitty thing that happened to a really good couple, great business owners, and hopefully everything gets straightened out. So we love you guys. Keep crushing it.
Talk soon.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, guys. Thanks.
That first 6 months where both Airbnb and my insurance company their attorneys are consulting each other to figure out who should pay first. Meanwhile, you're just sitting there.
For Airbnb, 6 months. They're just, you're up in the dark.
Right. So for the first 6 months of this, we thought that adjusting was happening and they were working towards a settlement. That wasn't the case. Our public adjuster told us that the insurance adjuster said Airbnb's attorneys and Lloyd's of London's attorneys have gotten together and they're arguing about who should pay first. And so what my insurance said, because they knew that this was a bonus for them, right? This is a bonus. Like, this is great. They're not going to have to shoulder as much of this. They said to them, can we split it 50-50? And for whatever legality, they said, no, we can't. It's got to be one or the other goes first and the other is excess.
Yeah. And you're probably thinking, I'll go Airbnb because I don't want a hit on my insurance.
So that's right. That's right. And that's what the attorney mentioned to us. And so that's why we went that way. And also, too, my building limit was $200,000.
Yeah.
Building estimate came over $200,000.
Yeah.
So by going Airbnb, you could actually possibly get more.
Right.
Than your insurance limit.
Yeah. Shit.
It is what it is, dude.